Hey, welcome back to another episode. We're in the summer season of taking weeks off, but
Yeah,
it's good.
kind of in the summer slump. I mean, we've slumped for longer and deeper, I think, than we
Yeah,
than we have
yeah,
this summer. But it's tough to find time to hang with you. But always love it when we can.
yeah. So, like, subscribe, share. It's good to be back. Lots happened over the last couple of weeks. It seems like the lectionary always comes up with a great text to address some of our cultural moments.
It's been on point
Uh,
lately. Ordinary
yeah,
time has not been so ordinary when it comes to
yeah,
fitting in with the news cycle.
yeah.
Somebody sent me a
Uh,
picture of the church the other day that they were going to, and everything was decked out in red. It's not Pentecost anymore. It's ordinary time. What are you fools doing?
yeah, yeah. Green. Let's go. It's green. Which I love. It's like the time of the church calendar where you things grow, where you dig the roots deeper. You get ready for the difficult times.
Yeah,
Uh,
I ordinary time, is kind of a misnomer, right? A little bit for what actually happens during that season of readings and the cycle in the church. I always thought that it was ordinary, like it's just ordinary, plain old stories. And then someone, a book or something, educated me. I was like, no, ordinary comes from the word ordinals, which is just numbers, and so it's just counting. It's like it's not intended to be just like ordinary or white bread or basic, like
uh,
me. So once I
yeah,
kind of understood what was going on, I'm still a little wet behind the ears. I'm still a bit of a rookie when it comes to this whole church year liturgy stuff. But it has been amazing how the texts have just kind of been following a lot of what the conversation is in general in society and culture. Maybe that's always happened, but having grown up in fundamentalism where we avoided anything like following a schedule, um, it's new to me.
well, I love it because it forces you to deal with these texts, and that I think some folks, like especially in evangelical circles, would definitely avoid this text that's coming up
Yeah, like
Sunday.
I would avoid the demon possessed man, throwing the demons legion into the pigs. Like that's a really
Yeah,
complex story. I guess you're right. I guess the avoidance of the Good Samaritan is um, it's pretty deep, which is shocking to me. Not even so much anymore. It used to just be like an outright, we won't talk about that. We'll focus more on Paul. We'll kind of avoid the implications of the Good Samaritan. Now, I don't know about you, but I hear a lot of folks actually speaking against, the Good Samaritan. It's not like they'll come right out and say, Jesus was wrong when he said the Good Samaritan, but, you'll make a comment on it and they will completely say the opposite of everything that's in there and discount the whole point of the whole. It just, it feels like we're living in a different world when it comes to interpretation of biblical texts.
yeah. Um, I think a lot of folks these days are obviously looking at scripture through the lens of their political affiliations, of their political
Is
passions.
that new? Is that a new thing?
I don't know that it's new. I think people are becoming more bold with it. I think it's becoming more and more. People are just more willing to do that, and
Yeah,
and
maybe that's what maybe
ignore.
that's what it is. It feels more pervasive, as though there is no section or segment or key issue or doctrine in Christianity that is not being attacked by politics. And maybe that's it. That politics would play into some conversations and ideas, but there seemed to be sacred space. That politics. We believe this. We hold to this. No matter what you are politically, and it's just yeah, yeah. So the needle has moved in some way.
Yeah. Well, and even this text, and I think growing up or in the church I did, you would definitely want to have compassion towards the migrant, the immigrant, the outsider. I think that was, even though we were Republican, we still were passionate about that. And I can remember doing a lot of different things for immigration, refugees, and those sorts of things, and donating to people that worked with them. And so, but now my same church has nothing to do with that. It's very much ignore these kind of texts, these these Jesus compassion on the outsider text is just flat out ignored. I
Yeah,
think.
that's a good point because the Good Samaritan, the point of, or part of the point, the wonderful thing about parables and about the stories of Jesus is there are like thousands of points that can come out of this. So saying the point of this is this may be a bit of
Yeah,
a oversimplification of these things. But one of the things that I think that you pointed out that is present in the text is the Samaritan is in the territory that he's not supposed to be in. He's kind of out of country or out of his place, and so you're having these, two kind of competing factions, these two competing, ethnicities and religious understandings, uh, in the same space. And as you said, for a lot of us today in the U.S. American Christian world and evangelicalism and Christianity, it's like we're moving towards this ethnocentric space where your country is your country, you stay there, my country is my country, I stay here, this is a white country, your country is a brown country, your country is, if I a black country, your country is a yellow I mean, to
yeah,
simplify that down into very politically incorrect ways, but there's this doctrine, this philosophy that's coming in the church that's like separation is kind of intentional, this idea of Babel and everything being separated and being apart from each other is the way things are supposed to be, and it's anti-God to have an idea of a melting pot or to have an idea of accepting foreigners or aliens or people who are different than you ethnically, racially, in your homeland. And that just, for Christians to be saying that and doing that in increasingly large numbers is really baffling and shocking to me, because you're right, it wasn't always that way.
yeah, um, yeah. You and I both been criticized of talking about Jesus too much, or we can't look to Jesus for our political agendas.
Bring it
And
on. You're
yeah,
going to criticize me for talking about Jesus too much? Bring it on. Bring it.
yeah. I see it as a compliment. I'm like, thank you, because I think we should be looking to Jesus, especially if we call ourselves a Christian, a little Jesus, a little Christ in the world. And I think the powerful part of this parable for me is at the end when he asked them, who's the one who was a neighbor to this man, and it was the one who showed mercy, right? And then he says, "Go and do likewise." So Jesus is literally commanding us to show mercy to the outsider and be a neighbor. That's and it goes back to the question now that we hear a lot in our culture is, well, who is our neighbor? And the famous J.D. Vance was like, well, first my neighbor is my family, then my neighbor's my American citizen, right? And he has these priorities, and Jesus in this text it like blows J.D. Vance's whole idea of who is your neighbor. Well, your neighbor is this outsider, is really anybody you come in contact with, is your neighbor. And I think that's the point. And Jesus calls us to love our neighbor. And here he gives a difficult neighbor to love. Like Samaritans were enemies, Samaritans were outsiders. They were ones that Israel wanted to deport, very similar to our cultural context today. And here, yeah, Jesus confronts us. I mean, he confronts what we're going through head on here in this story, in my opinion. It's like Jesus is caught like this guy on the side of the road is is was beaten by ice, right, and left to die. And yeah, I think I mean, it just happened here down the road from my street. Um, ICE. It's ridiculous. These are not criminals that ICE is. I mean, ICE is eliminating. I mean, so they showed up to a warehouse space yesterday just down the street from me and arrested 15 people. In fact, took out the whole facility and gave wristbands to green wristbands to those that they found were actually American citizens, and red wristbands to those who were going through the process to become legitimate. Right there, the only reason ICE knew that where they were is because They
because
were
they're in
legally
process. They're
here.
following the legal
They're legally
process.
here, and they gave them red bracelets and then arrested them, and are taking them to be deported probably today or in that alligator or whatever
Yeah.
concentration camp.
Yeah, which CBS did a news report this week that said alligator, how just the violations of what they said it was going to be like there are it's not 3 meals a day, it's 1 meal a day, maggots, there's no water for showers, there's barely any water for drinking, air conditioning in staff quarters but not air conditioning in holding court. It's just
It's
like,
awful. Yeah.
yeah, it is. And as you're talking to us, like the church, and this idea of neighbor and who's your neighbor. um we used to see, I think, the whole world as being our neighbor in some sense, even if we didn't really treat it that way. We still would have said, I think, that the whole world is our neighbor. And over the last decade or two, at least from my vantage point, I'd say that's the time in which it's happened. We've drawn that circle concentrically smaller. Well, no, it's just our nation that is our neighbors. No, it's just our community, who is our neighbors. And now it's to the point where what you hear a lot of people advocating for within Christianity is, no, it's just people who are like me, who are my ethnicity, are my neighbor, in my same racial class, in my same social strata, who live close. And a lot of them now are even like, only my family is my neighbor. I'm like, did you even pick up a Bible and read this story? The Samaritan and the Jewish people, that couldn't be any different than what you're advocating for. And I think you're right. This idea of ICE representing, the folks who are beating and leaving people bloodied on the side of the road wrongly, Jesus would have said, and the church would have said, in not so distant memory, is a valid comparison to where we are and what's going on. And rather than the church decrying this and saying, wait, hold up, we need to do due diligence here, but even at the base, you said compassion. We're not even treating these people like humans. We're treating these people like dogs, like worse than we treat dogs and our pets. Subhuman. Is I don't recognize the church, and I don't recognize that Christianity or those Christians anymore.
Yeah. I don't. I'm with you. I don't see how people can get on this side. I mean, I get that in countries deportations either happen, people take advantage of the system, but that's not what's happening here. And I think too, even if that was what's happening here, the way people are being treated, they should never be treated this way, right? They should never be put in these concentration camps. They should never be,
we
beaten.
treat white murderers, we
Yeah,
treat white serial murderers better than we treat 60-year-old immigrant moms who have been here for 40 years,
yeah,
who forgot to file a piece of paper a decade ago.
yeah,
We're deporting people who have done literally nothing wrong and who have followed our process to countries that are not their own
yeah,
country to begin with. First of all, it's not their country. They've probably never lived in Guatemala or Mexico. And if they have, it's been 40 or 50 years since they've lived there. Their home is here. We're
yeah,
not sending
yeah,
them home, but we're also not even sending them to their homeland. We're sending them to Sudan, to El Salvador, and dropping them off, not even in a different country than their ethnicity, but on a different continent. Like,
yeah.
what the actual,
Yeah, yeah.
come on. No
I saw.
Christian can support that.
No,
Zero. Like,
I don't.
you
Yeah,
can't. There cannot be any faith-based way to argue that that's okay. Period.
yeah, and I don't know how you read the story of the Good Samaritan,
It's worth
and
reading. You can't do
yeah,
that.
and
Like, you're
think
just
that
not. Sorry.
this is loving your neighbor. That you're showing mercy to your neighbor. I mean, I saw a gentleman who was born in Germany. To his father was an army, United States Army man, and married a Jamaican national. He was born to an American Army man, and they deported him to Jamaica, a country he's never lived in, only because his mother was Jamaican. Like they're just like literally finding any way they think they can deport you. And of course, they're all brown or black. Like white people aren't being deported. My I have family who a family member who immigrated recently, the last couple months, and went through the process just fine, had no threat of being deported,
It's
and
it's ethnic
he's
cleansing.
white. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ethnic cleansing. It is straight up pure 100% unadulterated racism based on a whole lot of shitty myths and racial bias that is deeply embedded within us, that now we're using our faith to justify, not even looking the other way anymore, but using our faith to justify, using Jesus to justify. You say, well, those examples that Matt gave are the exception, not the rule. No, no, those are the rule. Less than
Yeah.
6% of those who have been taken in have any criminal record at all, let alone a violent criminal record. The violent criminal record is even less than 6%. The other 94%, every single one of those stories is a story like Matt's story.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, um, my buddy is working with the folks who got arrested, and he said the first analysis of the 2 dozen or so folks that got arrested was none of them had any criminal record. All of them are going through the process, and all of them were at work, with families here, and they're still getting to know all their stories. But yeah, this is what they're doing. They're literally going to the court system, getting lists of people going through the process legally. As all Trumpers say, if they just leave and come back legally, then they can come here. These are people doing that, and these are the people getting ejected. I mean, it's just yeah, it fires me up. It's heartbreaking to hear stories. It's heartbreaking too to see Christians, supposed Christians, support this and get excited about it. They're happy about it. They're thankful that this is happening. And I don't see in what world this lines up with our values as Christ followers or what Jesus called us to do
Yeah,
in our world.
I've lived in two border states for an extended period of time. One of those states I lived essentially on a border with an incredibly high population of those who are not just immigrants, but who would be considered undocumented immigrants. I spent a good majority of my time in ministry there, and just in my personal life interacting with undocumented, quote unquote, illegal immigrants. You can't not. The population is so high; they're everywhere. And I tell you what, one of the things that I learned was that what is said about them by folks who don't know them is very untrue. Very hardworking, very kind, very loving, live in constant fear of breaking a speed law, of coming face to face with an officer or something who's going to deport them. You may say, rightfully so, get them out of here. Okay, a lot of these people have been here, like they're second or third generation here, uh, you know, and a lot of their family members aren't yet. They're sending a lot of them money back home to try and support their families somewhere else. But the worst part to me is that the U.S. has intentionally not provided a path for them to become naturalized or to become citizens. It is nearly impossible to follow that process for most people. You say go out and just come in the right way. Now there is no way to come in if you're not white. Before, it was still almost impossible to come in. But we would not change that system. We wouldn't work on that system in order to make it easier or to make a way for that to happen, because it was better for the U.S. for them to not be citizens. We needed them. We wanted them. Our economy in a high number of states is built on the backs of people who are undocumented. It was essentially slavery. It is modern slavery in that we allowed and advocated and blessed people coming in illegally and undocumented, and then allowed them to remain so, removing all of the paths to citizenship or to naturalization that they would have taken if we had put one in place that was able to be accomplished by them. But it was better for us to not do that, to look the other way. And so now we're we're doubling down and screwing over the people who we have been screwing over from the very beginning because it was in our own best interest as a country perceptually to do that.
Yeah, we have a history of that, right? We like to oppress. I think that's an important point. I think that comes out of this story, the Good Samaritan, is that we want to build empire on the backs of the oppressed, and so we see in the story those who are part of the empire walking past the guy, the migrant worker, whoever that was, and didn't help them. It doesn't tell us who it was, but we can only assume if it was a fellow priest or somebody part of the empire, they probably most certainly would have helped them. Um, and I think that shouldn't be lost on us. And so America, every empire does it. Every empire exists because of the backs of people who have been oppressed, and constantly throughout our scriptures we see God and Jesus telling the Israelites to remember when you were oppressed. I mean, one of the readings this week in Amos is about that. It's like, remember when you were oppressed and stop oppressing. I mean, that was whole Amos's whole prophetic vision is stop oppressing those because you are now the empire, and that it all comes back to you at some point. Yeah, we keep doing it over and over and over again, and now we're treating the oppressed um, even worse than we were before. Um, and it's all it's just so sickening. It's so sad. And to your point, I mean, if you're white and you want to immigrate to America, your pathway is quick. It won't take you long, and you can get it done. You're not gonna have ICE knocking down your door. And so, yeah, I think my heart is broken about this, and I think we forget too that I think Christians have forgotten that we are also strangers in this land, that we are called to a different kind of kingdom, a different kind of empire. We're called to subvert the empire in which we live. And I think a lot of MAGA Christians have lost that vision, the vision of God, they've lost it and traded it for the vision of power, for the vision of, wealth or what have you, influence in the world. I mean, Donald Trump, he is, he's not the brightest guy, but he knows how to influence people, and he knows how to scratch their back and get what he wants. And he learned quickly if he offers Christian leaders power and influence in the government and in his world, he'll get what he wants out of them. And sure enough, he did it, and he's getting it. And they believe everything he says, and most of what he says is a lie, and they'll believe it. And just because they have that position that they've always wanted, and they tell their people to believe it. Of course, their people believe it because they're God's person, right? So it's a vicious cycle that has to stop. I mean, we saw too, like that. Here you have a Samaritan also feeding, taking care of, bringing back to health, and then we have a government, and we have Christians praying, right, that this bill passes, the bill that just passed, that takes food from the poor, takes food from children in schools. It takes health care away from people in poverty, uh, from the poor. And so here again, we see Christians doing something that's anti-Jesus, that's anti-Christ, all in the name of God knows what. So Trump can hook up his billionaire buddies, and the funniest thing that was in there is like they're eliminating tax on tanning salons. So Trump doesn't have to pay his tax when he goes to make himself orange. Anyways, I digress a little bit there, but it, yeah, I mean, the Samaritan story, I think, sums up what has happened over the last week or two with our culture, and we've completely gone antichrist from those who are in power.
Yeah,
You
the Pharisees, rightly or wrongly, have historically gotten a really bad rap within evangelicalism and within Protestantism. The worst thing you can be as a Pharisee, and yet I read the Pharisees, and I think, in comparison to the Pharisees and to MAGA Christianity and evangelicalism. I think Jesus would look at the two Pharisees and MAGA evangelicalism and say to the Pharisees, "Well done." you know, I mean, I don't see anything in the Pharisees that is half as bad, as what I see happening within the church and Christianity by and large here in the U.S. And it's just shocking. It's depressing. It's defeating.
Yeah. Um, yeah. The hope I think that I have in this text, the Samaritan story, is I think uh, Jesus he's in the Samaritan, the one who helps. He is with the one who needs help. Um, and I think that shouldn't be lost on us. And I read a story the other day, like I forget what the percentage is. It's somewhere over 80% of these migrants and immigrants that are being deported are also Christians. I mean, we're deporting our own, even in JD Vance's whole thing, it's like, Christianity was ahead of like people from other countries, and here's fellow Christians that we're deporting. And ICE is taking their Bibles away from them and saying you have no right to religion, and you can't have this, here. But even despite that, I believe Jesus is with those who are being imprisoned unjustly, and Jesus is with those who are helping. Those who are doing the right things and trying to help those. I think that's where Jesus is present. That's where Jesus would want his church to be present with those who are being oppressed. He would want us to bring them back to health, to give them food and water, to give them a roof over their head, as the Good Samaritan does. He wouldn't
Yeah.
want us to be like the robbers,
No,
which is
I think you make such a great point that I think we miss so often, in that our faith trumps our politics, which, I think most people on any side of the aisle or belief system would probably still say, even if they don't do it, is that our faith or responsibility to Christ trumps our politics. But I think you made a great point as to how we show compassion, how we help these people, who are being oppressed and who are marginalized, really says whether or not we believe that. Or we have a greater responsibility to assist and help and aid them, not to leave the country, but in their trauma, in their season of distress and difficulty, than we do to be advocating for and creating ways to cause harm and to punish them. I just think that this whole kingdom of man, kingdom of God, that we've gotten everything so upside down, as you say, to think that our responsibility is to get these people out of here rather than as Christians to take care of them in whatever difficult situation they find themselves in because of the tyranny of the state. Even if I were to believe that all of these people should be deported and should get out of here as soon as possible, even were I to believe that, I don't understand a Christianity that says I want to put you in an incarceration system that is demeaning, that where you don't have human rights, where you don't have decent food, decent air, where I want you to be brutally punished or harmed, or have the worst possible. Well, our conditions that troops stay in overseas are the same or worse than Alligator Alcatraz. Okay, well, maybe the troops shouldn't be in such a situation. Well, a lot of our prisons, in the U.S. don't have air conditioning. Why should they have it in Florida? Yeah, I don't think there's any prison in Florida that doesn't have air conditioning. Maybe if you're in Jersey or in Montana, your prison doesn't have air conditioning because you don't need air conditioning. But okay, maybe all of our prisons should have air conditioning, no matter what people have done. Like, I don't understand why we're trying to race to the bottom,
yeah.
comparison on this kind of, like, it makes no sense to me. Well, these people don't have it. Well, maybe everybody should have some
Well,
level of dignity, especially
this is
folks.
equivalent to like a misdemeanor. Like it's not even a criminal crime to be an illegal alien. It's a civil violation that is equivalent. The fine for it is like a misdemeanor, like a parking ticket.
Yeah,
is
and
almost the equivalent. So like we're
our
throwing people
government
in
has enabled it,
prison.
some of these people for 30 or 40
Yeah,
years. So it would be like you getting a parking ticket when you're 16 years old and no one ever doing anything about it. And then 30 or 40 years later, you get sent to prison by the
yeah,
government
yeah,
and deported from your country because you ran a stop sign at 16 years old. Like it makes absolutely no sense
yeah.
unless you have so much hate in your heart that you don't know what to do with it.
Well, that's just it. I mean, it's clear
It's not
that a lot
rational.
of
It's not reasonable.
yeah,
It's hatred, and it's in a lot of ways it's religiously sanctioned and motivated hatred, which makes it offensive to God, to Jesus. Who the hell do you think you are going to show up to Jesus after Matthew 25? You saw me in prison and you didn't, help me. You saw me in need. You saw me homeless, and who the hell? How brave are you to stand before Jesus? What are you going to say?
yeah.
like what is your defense going to be?
You're gonna have to receive a lot of grace in that moment.
Your defense is going to be, oh, well, I prayed a prayer at the age of 16 years old, so I can act however the hell I want for 40 years. Well, that person, they also had a parking ticket at the age of 16 years old, and they didn't get off, so I'm not going to let you off either.
Yeah,
I just, what do you expect Jesus to do and say to you? Give you the same kind of grace that you're not giving to everybody else? What makes you think you're going to be at the front of the line? If there is a hell, you're going to be the one there.
yeah. I mean, they're putting people in hell on earth. I mean, they deserve, as the evangelicals like to say, we deserve hell, but for Jesus' saving. In this situation, Jesus has called us to save these guys to help make it right, to make it whole, and we're not doing that. We are making it miserable on them.
It's the
And
proof of our faith.
yeah, and even think through it logically, like the logical reason that they're doing this is because they're taking our jobs. It's very selfish, reason, right?
Taking our
But
jobs.
we're not gonna go take those jobs. Like they're just not gonna get done. We're what what white
We're not going to
what
take. We're not going to take those jobs. We're not standing in line. Anybody who
yeah,
has ever picked strawberries in a strawberry field, anybody who has detasseled corn, anybody who has worked in Florida in landscaping, there ain't no white person who is voting for Trump who's going to take those jobs. That's why those jobs are open and taken for other people, and they make decent money
yeah,
doing it if the landowner is kind. If not, then it becomes again another slavery situation where they're able to earn enough to live, but they get taken advantage of. It just and do some study in economics. No modern country survives without that kind of labor. So somebody was like, well, no nation on earth has ever survived with any diversity. What? Do you know anything about world history that no nation has ever survived when there's been diversity? Let me introduce you to the Roman Empire. How
yeah,
old is America? 250 years old. How long was the Roman Empire? 1478 years or something. Like the Roman Empire was around for 6 times longer than the U.S. has been here, and they made diversity work, pretty well. In fact, we still talk about Pax Romana, about Roman peace. Well, then they're pointing. I had somebody the other day who was like, well, the last 100 years, the empire fell because of migration, and linked an article or two. Like, did you actually read the articles that you posted? Yeah, you screenshotted AI, and AI got it wrong because AI misquoted the articles. They actually said the opposite, that the Roman Empire was not able to survive without immigration, and that the
yeah,
changing world economics caused it. And if they had leaned into, like, I'm just, y'all, you don't have to be so stupid. Like just, you have to try to be this dumb. Like, turn off Fox News,
yeah,
stop listening to Trump. Like, pick up a legitimate book that isn't written by somebody who's from TPUSA, put down Charlie Kirk, turn off Glenn Beck. Actually somebody who has a degree. It doesn't even have to be a PhD. It could be somebody with a bachelor's degree in world history. And you know what? You're, you're going to learn a thing or two.
You're right. I mean, the American isolationism is it's a downfall of every country. I mean, once you isolate yourself from the rest of the world, it's I mean, it turns into authoritarianism, and that's where we're headed.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not,
America's.
it never ends well. I mean, we see it even in modern history, So it's not good. It's not good. It's not loving. It's not Christ-like. It's nothing like Jesus. And I laugh and cry when I see these politicians praying in the chambers of Congress, for these things to happen. And
They're praying to a false god. They're
uh,
praying to a god who isn't listening to them. They're praying to a god who they don't serve. It's show. And Jesus and Paul both had a lot to say about religion that was for show. And it's not good.
yeah, you're right. It's it is for show because they think they're going to get votes because they're praying. Look at me.
And and they will, which is a less of commentary on them and more commentary on us as the church.
Yeah.
That we have so lost the plot as to believe and give our votes and our service and our life to those who are harming the folks who Jesus directly commanded us to take care of and protect and work on behalf of.
Did you see that ad for Homeland Security yesterday that was going around?
Oh my gosh!
Isaiah
The
6,
one that
8.
matches the what is it? I will.
Here I am.
Here I am.
We'll
Send me
go
the was
forth.
Isaiah passage, right?
Yeah. God asking for a prophet to preach his good news of the gospel, his love of neighbor to Israel. And Isaiah said, "Here I am, send me." They dubbed it over ICE soldiers arresting people in America. It was awful, and I'm sure a lot of MAGA Christians loved it. And it was dramatized to make you feel good and emotional and all of that.
Yeah, well, I think this is exactly it, and this is something that Trump has done very well, and that MAGA has done very well, is they realized, and Fox News has done this too. They realized that truth doesn't really matter to people anymore. People will believe what they want to believe, but it's about vibes. It's about how I feel. As you said, it's about emotions. Something that evokes this thing, stokes this pride or this feeling in me, no matter how untrue or how wrong or how harmful or hurtful it is to me or others. People will give themselves to all manner of evil if they can feel good doing it. And Trump and MAGA have found a way to make people feel good through vibes, through content that strokes, the ego. They know exactly what they're doing. Marketing geniuses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's disgusting. It's deplorable to match blasphemy, to match up scripture with the images that were there. Here am I sin.
I mean, it's literally the direct opposite message of what was intended by that Isaiah passage, what's intended in the Good Samaritan passage, versus what was on the screen, the video that it was overlaying. Like complete opposite meaning. And yeah, any Christian should see that and know that. I mean, I know MAGA Christians know that that's not what that passage is talking about.
But here's the thing, I am coming of the opinion that to them in the world, the real evil in the world is not principalities, powers, as the King James, talks about. It's not demons, the evil one. It's not Satan. It's not, an eternity in hell. It's not Lucifer. Like, none of these things are the real villains in the world. The real villain is libtards. The real villain is anyone who would dare identify, with Obama derangement syndrome or Biden, like the real villain is anybody who would vote or be a part of the party that is opposite of mine. And as MAGA, anything opposite of that, Elon Musk party, any of this, but especially liberal, progressive, any of that is the true evil and is the true supervillain in the world. And so I think that that's why this religious syncretism of content between things that are utterly evil and antichrist with verses, that say the opposite thing of the images and the stuff that's going on in the background doesn't matter to them. Truth doesn't matter because it is all about anything that inflames, excites, sends through the roof people that I don't like. Democrats, liberals. It doesn't matter how untrue or how unholy or how utterly deplorable it is, as long as it makes them fly off the handle and become undone. All's fair in love and war.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, that's Trump's whole thing is his whole administration is own the liberals, own the libtards, as they call them. And if you can hear it in his rhetoric,
keep him riled up, keep him like a.
I mean, if anything goes bad for him, he just blames the liberals.
Keep him like a hornet's nest,
and everybody believes him, right? Like, I mean, his economy was tanking from his tariffs, and he had to back off the tariffs because of it. And yet he still blamed the liberals for the reason it was tanking. But MAGA believes it. Like there is no truth. I mean, that was a great point. Like you made earlier, there really is no truth, and really the truth is whatever Trump says.
Yeah, you can't fight this with facts. You can't fight this with truth. You're not going to logic, rationalize, or hey, the Bible says this. You're not going to get out of it in this way. And this is, why a lot of times I will. To you, I don't say it so much online sometimes, but to those who are close, it's brainwashing. It's a cult where whatever the leader says goes, and that's what truth is. Your religion is America first. Your holy high priest is Trump. You're not following the way of Jesus. The gospel that you're preaching is whatever platform Trump decides, that day to bless.
Yeah.
I don't know how you pull people out of brainwashing, though. I guess that's maybe the thing that I need to put some time into looking into is how do you, or can you pull people out of cults? How do you reverse engineer brainwashing? That's essentially, sadly, with so many Christians, where we are. But you're not going to truth them out of having been brainwashed. You're not going to rationalize or logic them out of it.
Once you show them their logic is wrong or that they're factually wrong, they just ignore you. They don't engage it. They just are like, oh, and then the conversation's over. They move on and they keep believing what they want to believe. And yeah, it's hard. I don't know what the answer is. That is a good something to research. It is they are brainwashed, and logic, rationalization, showing them the scriptures. I mean, they'll literally tell you that we can't listen to Jesus on that one for this issue. Like what? So it's like you can't win if they say that. Like, what can you do?
No, I was talking to my therapist a little bit about this, and it was fascinating. He said, he was talking about dealing with people with multiple, issues kind of in the same vein, but what he was specifically talking about, political brainwashing in that way. And he said, really, the only thing that you can do is a little like Job, is sit with them in grief, that something is broken inside. And what has broken and caused them to be brainwashed is something that is in their present or that is in their past that has caused them to be sad, that's caused grief, that's caused trauma. And so, it may have been a lost job. It may have been, a Democrat president or whatever that they voted for that turned their back on them. It may there is something that's going on that has caused them to be in extreme grief and sadness, and that the only thing that you can really do is just kind of sit with them and say, you know, that must make you really sad. I'm sorry that you feel that so much harm has come from, and not in a passive aggressive way. I don't even know how you say it. For somebody who believes that people should be deported for having done nothing wrong, and you're doing so, you're violating human rights. You're violating people's human rights, and you're going against the Christian doctrine that you speak. I don't know how you sit with someone and say, I'm sorry for the sadness and the grief and the fear that you feel over what these illegal immigrants have done. Like, I don't know how you do it with a straight face.
Yeah.
But that's the starting point, is sitting there with somebody in their grief and in their emotions and in their sadness. I don't know
Well,
where
I
you go
think,
from there, but
yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I like that. But I think on the immigration issue, it's this cultural like racism that people that aren't white are the cause of all crime and murder and violent crimes. And that's what Trump ran on. And we're seeing that, like, obviously we addressed it, that those aren't the folks being deported right now. And it's, but they keep saying it like these are criminals. These are criminals. Like hear Caroline Levitt talk, or we're arresting all these criminals. And it's like, no, you're not. And so I think that's the fear. But they've never, like, I know for my family, like they've never had violent crime done to them by a brown person, but that's the cultural like fear that is put there, that like, you lock your doors when you drive through a brown neighborhood or a black neighborhood, uh, even though you've never been robbed by a brown or black person, but you have this cultural fear. And so they're stoking that. And I think you're right too. I think there is, Trump won because he said he would, lower their egg costs and their grocery costs. And I think there is a sadness and fear over that. I mean, I have that. I mean, I look at my bills and my bank account, and things go up, and the costs go up, and my income isn't going up at all either. So then when you hear a politician,
yeah.
lean into that, you can get.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. We've seen this long term, but we've especially seen this recently as a and this is anecdotal. I don't have any data to support this. This is just my perception from what I've seen. Maybe there's data out there, but a large portion of the people who support Trump and are ultra MAGA are truly angry and have had a really hard life and a really hard time for a really long time. And I think, in a lot of ways, both parties ignored that, but the Democrat Party in a lot of ways did too. The Democrat Party was all about, you know, let's be honest, it may have been right to implement DI. It may be right, to call people by their pronouns. It may be right to advocate and elevate the LGBTQ, but in a lot of ways, a lot of those things were more um, lipstick on a pig. They didn't get below the
Yeah.
surface and actually changing and addressing the difficulties and the human rights and those things like that. It was more a little like MAGA. It was just a rallying cry in order to pull progressive people together, but there wasn't a whole lot of stuff being done, to address deeply the problem systematically that we have, for those things. And I think, with MAGA, a large number of the people who I know who are still strong MAGA are people who have had very difficult existences, recently. And I think there is a lot of grief and sadness and a desire, for somebody to stand up on their behalf and say, we need to do better. We need to think of other people. We need to think about white people. We need to think about the Midwest. We need to think about folks who vote conservative. They matter too. All lives matter. And I don't want to. I don't want to justify necessarily any of that, but I can understand, knowing the people's past, why Trump and MAGA is such an attractive mirage to them, and how they've gotten sucked into it. And that's difficult to watch because I can resonate with the feeling that got them there, but it ate them alive. And they've become someone who the them of 10 years ago or 15 years ago not only would not recognize the person that they are today, but would have vehemently worked against and hated that person that they would have become.
Yeah, that's great. 100%. I think you're right on. I mean, we saw it in 2016 election cycle when Bernie and Trump were both, talking about the same thing, but different sides of the same coin. And a lot of, I saw, anecdotally in my community, a lot of Bernie supporters they're now Trumpers, right? And Bernie is still
Once a
on.
fundamentalist, always a fundamentalist. Just go to the ditch on the other side of the road,
But,
right?
but yeah, but Bernie is about like what you were saying. That this let's deal with people's like real issues in their life, their bills that they have to pay, their going to the grocery store and not living paycheck to paycheck anymore, and those sorts of things. Those are the real things that politicians need to address if they want a voice. And Trump promised him something he can't deliver on, and he has no plan to deliver on. He has no idea how to deliver on, and he uses I love that as a mirage to address some real evil issues that we've talked about today, and get permission to do it from folks that I think a lot of folks, you know, balk at some of it because they see the immorality of some of it. Um, they don't want to believe that some of it's happening, right? It's fake news. That's not really happening that way. You don't know what you're talking about. Um, then even with the Epstein thing, we don't have a lot of time to dive into it, but like it's clear a lot of MAGA Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and some others truly believe he is on that list, and that's why they're trying to squash it. And so I think we're starting to see cracks in the armor, realizing that this is an immoral leader, an immoral administration, and so
Yeah, I think there are a lot of folks who are just going through the motions, who have questions or who, may not be fully brainwashed, but who are just kind of going along with it, who are kind of pretending, who are kind of in on some things, but really don't understand and aren't sure that they're in on other things. But there's no safe space to speak up. There's no one around them that they think feels similarly or questions similarly. So everyone just continues to kind of pretend as though everything is okay, and there's no chaos, and that is dangerous for Christians to do, because we are called to be people of truth and integrity and character. And whenever we are silent, even about our questions on things like those things that you just listed, real people get hurt, and that's counterproductive to the gospel that Jesus taught.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that whole Epstein thing. So Jelaine is in prison for trafficking children to nobody.
Yeah.
like like there was no
And Jeffrey was
there was
arrested
no
for no
list.
reason. Yeah.
There were no people on the other side, of that children minor sex abuse. Like Jelaine went to prison because she trafficked kids to nobody. There were no
There's nobody
people.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, make it make sense.
Even if Epstein killed it, the suicide murder thing is irrelevant. But why would he kill himself in prison? Like if he didn't think he was going down for something, like it doesn't logically line up yet. I can't wait for her to get out of jail and
If
start
I were her, I'd be
talking.
writing letters, but I'm sure they're
Yeah,
getting intercepted.
yeah.
If people are
Uh,
like, Bill Clinton were on that list. I'm like, no, I want Bill Clinton to be in prison.
I'm
You know,
sure Bill's on
I
it.
just
Yeah.
if there are people on that list who did that, I don't care what their political affiliation is or how powerful they are. They need to be held accountable for that. But again, your politics have brainwashed you into the real supervillains are the Democrats or liberals or any progressives, and you're irrational. You're like a rabid
The fact that
raccoon.
you think that you said that somebody said that to you about Bill Clinton tells me they know that their boy Trump is on it. Right? It's like it is clear he's on it. Like he
Oh,
was,
there are pictures. Like,
yeah,
I just,
and you could hear him talking about the girls. Anyways, um, yeah, that one. I mean, again, there's nothing that.
but hey, get rid of the brown person who came here across the border and deserves a misdemeanor, but yeah, let's focus on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if he hasn't done it already, but by the time this goes live, I'm sure soon he's going to do something more outlandish if the Epstein stuff keeps going. So we talk about something else. That's his MO. That's why he always says, in 2 weeks, we'll get to that. If he doesn't have an answer, because he knows in 2 weeks, there'll be something else everybody's talking about. So he is very smart at that. I give him credit where credit is due.
Yeah, every cult leader is.
Yeah.
Every cult leader is great at sleight of hand and distraction and making everything make sense, no matter how nonsensical it is, to the people who drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Crazy. Well,
you ready to move on
to the after show?
All right, let's do it. I mean, last week was the week of the 4th, so I'm not I'm not even sure that we should have done an after show to talk about nutrition and workouts. It's summer.
Well, we don't have to talk about nutrition.
Bad. Oh, is that? Let's avoid the nutrition. Is that what you're saying? I would like to avoid the nutrition as well, because as I showed Matt just before we went live, I've if you saw me eating at the beginning of the show, then this is not nutritious.
Yeah, the 4th of July weekend wasn't so great, but in fact, it was a long weekend, man. We do so much here at the church on the 4th of July. We have an event that day in our town, and it's a long day. I'm still recovering kind of from it, emotionally and physically, but back on the workout grind, and yeah, so that's nice. And I don't know if you've ever done. I mean, I know you did CrossFit in Ohio, which in the summer in Ohio can be hot. It's very hot in our CrossFit box, and so it's I think I lose like 5 pounds every time I go.
Yeah, if there are not like excessive fans, large, huge industrial warehouse strength fans, it can get brutal.
I started bringing a towel to work out, but today was bench day, so I was very proud of my benching. I feel like I'm in a good place there, because I don't skip bench day. When I see bench day pop up, I show up. So it's
classic. It's necessary.
Yeah, and we did a heavy set of 5, and then me and a buddy in the gym just put 135 on the bar and just cranked out a set of 25 at the end. So that was kind of fun. And yeah, I don't know. It's good. I'm feeling good in the gym. I'm feeling like my cardio is good. And I just need to lock in the old nutrition. So I'm still like maintaining. I haven't weighed myself since July 4th, but before July 4th,
it's wise.
I was down 30 pounds for the year, and my highest I was down 40. So I've gained 10 back, but still feeling pretty good. So anyways, that's where I'm at. But I'm going to wait another week and then jump back on the scale. Tricks of the mind, right?
There's wisdom there. You got to take the long view, right?
Yeah.
Rome wasn't conquered in a day. It was conquered in 100 years by immigrants, but it wasn't conquered in a day.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm holding steady or slowly gaining ground, which I guess, is progress despite, things to the opposite here. Yeah, weight is holding steady, slowly changing the eating habits to get back into what I consider my baseline diet, protein, vegetables, everything in balance. I am not quite there, but I gave myself a long off ramp after the open heart surgery, which, thanks to the hair and healing, you can't really see the scar anymore, but
Oh yeah, wow.
it's
Kind of.
it's
He kind of, yeah.
it's there, but you gotta really know to look for it, which is good. I no longer feel popping and shifting in my rib cage whenever I move or roll over. So I think if it's not healed back up and immobile, then it should be close. Unfortunately, at PT, which it's a whole lot of cardio at PT, which is probably good for me, but still just doing the arm
Okay.
thing. They've not released me to weights yet, but I think that's going to come in a couple of weeks. 2 weeks maybe is when they say. I think I'm probably just going to say goodbye to PT. And my surgeon said within a couple of weeks I should be able to lift what I want. So we
Oh,
might we might
cool.
we might take the risk
All right.
and go and do it and hope that I don't pop a rib or anything.
Yeah. Go put some weight on the bar. That's exciting.
Yeah, well, I think at the beginning it'll
Swimming.
just be the bar.
Yeah.
I'm so weak.
Swimming.
I hope that will come back, but I don't know. We'll see.
It will. You should try out some swimming as a transition.
Yeah, it's
I
not a bad
uh,
idea.
I've been swimming laps because the pool's open and I'm there almost every day, and it works the lats pretty good, and then the legs pretty good. Like it works different parts of the muscles, and yeah, it might be a good thing to ease you back into it.
Yeah, I'll check into that.
Because if you think about it, like in the water, you're pulling the water, so it's a good, nice, like pull.
Yeah, it's a good workout, and you have to admit that swimmers build. It's a
Yeah,
thing, right? So
yeah. My
I do
son's
not
got
have
it.
the swimmers build, but I could probably do to be a little bit more like the swimmers build.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's cool that you're getting close to being back in the gym. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm close enough where it feels like it's almost just time for the next medical emergency that takes me back, soon.
Well,
All right, what's
welcome,
the next hospital
welcome,
stay?
welcome to life, right?